A major Russian drone and missile attack killed at least 18 people and injured 48 in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has summoned the Kremlin's Brussels envoy for talks after Russian attacks damaged the European delegation in Kyiv.
2 children were killed after a shooter opened fire with a rifle through the windows of a Catholic school church in Minneapolis.
The Russian drone and missile attack killed at least 18 people and injured 48 in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. At least 4 children are among the dead in the attack, which used drones, cruise and ballistic missiles. The attack impacted more than 20 locations across the capital, totally destroying a 5-story residential building. Residents were left stunned by the strike as rescue teams searched to find people under the rubble of fallen buildings.
На голову двері. Це все, що було. Всю квартиру розтрощило, у нас 2 машини побило. Так, поки зараз ще дуже не роздивлялися, вийшли одразу на вулицю і пішли в укриття.
Да, чесно, прям от щоб так близько ще ніколи не прилітало. От, ну, в будь-якому разі зараз страждають всі і прилітає в будь-які райони. І, ну, як бачимо, ніякі перемовини поки нічого не дають, люди страждають, на жаль.
The attack is Russia's first major strike on Kyiv since US President Donald Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska earlier this month. Despite multiple high-level meetings, US-led efforts to bring about an end to the war have struggled to gain traction.
The European Union has formally summoned the Russian envoy in Brussels in response to the strike on the Ukrainian capital, which severely damaged the bloc's mission in Kyiv. 2 Russian missiles struck a civilian building within 50 meters of the European delegation in the span of 20 seconds overnight into Thursday. The shockwaves from the attack caused severe structural damage to the mission's office space. The EU's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, has responded to the attacks, stressing that it's a crime to target diplomatic missions in war. The Vienna Convention of 1961, which Russia is a signatory to, mandates protection for diplomatic and consular missions during wartime. Kallas also slammed the Kremlin for escalating the conflict instead of pursuing peace and summoned Moscow's EU envoy Karen Malayan for talks. Separately, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said she was outraged by the barrage targeting Kyiv.
And this is another grim reminder of what is at stake. It shows that the Kremlin will stop at nothing to terrorize Ukraine, blindly killing civilians, men, women and children, and even targeting the European Union. This is why we are keeping maximum pressure on Russia. That means tightening our sanctions regime. We will come forward soon with our 19th package of hard-biting sanctions. And in parallel, we are advancing the work on the Russian frozen assets to contribute to Ukraine's defense and reconstruction.
The Commission chief noted that none of the delegation staff were harmed in the attacks and re-emphasized her unwavering support to Ukraine.
2 children were killed after a shooter opened fire with a rifle through the windows of a Catholic church in Minneapolis on Wednesday. Nearly 200 children of the Annunciation Catholic School were sitting in the pews to celebrate Mass during the first week of school. 14 other children and 3 octogenarian parishioners were wounded but are expected to survive, according to the police chief. Hundreds of Minneapolis residents held a vigil at a nearby school's gym, attended by Governor Tim Walz and Catholic clergy.
To those whose children or parents were injured and who are still in the hospital, to all of the young children who were there for Mass today, I hope that our prayers this evening might give them a sense that they are not alone.
The shooter was identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, who killed himself shortly after firing at the children. FBI Director Kash Patel said on X that the shooting is being investigated as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Minneapolis police said they hadn't yet found any relationship between the shooter and the church, nor determined a motive for the bloodshed. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will make a rare trip to China next week for a military parade in Beijing to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Russian President Vladimir Putin will also be among the 26 foreign leaders attending.
中方愿同朝鲜方面继续在加强交流合作、推进社会主义建设这条道路上携手前行。 在促进地区和平稳定、维护国际公平正义的事业中密切协作，续写中朝传统友好的新篇章。
China has long been North Korea's biggest trading partner and main aid provider, but Kim has recently aimed to expand relations with other countries confronting the U.S., including Russia. North Korea has been supplying troops and ammunition to support Russia's war against Ukraine. While U.S. President Donald Trump recently expressed renewed interest in meeting with Kim, the North Korean leader has dismissed both U.S. and South Korean efforts to restart diplomacy.
Weather conditions that fueled deadly wildfires in Turkey, Greece and Cyprus were made more intense by climate change, researchers have found. A rapid analysis from World Weather Attribution showed that hot, dry and windy conditions were around 22% more intense because of human-caused climate change. The findings follow data confirming that 2025 was Europe's worst wildfire year on record, with more than 1 million hectares of land burned through. Researchers warn that the risk of larger, harder-to-control fires will continue if the world persists in burning fossil fuels. Climate change has been influencing weather in the months, weeks and days leading up to the devastating fires. Turkey was among the countries hardest hit as the blazes raged, with 17 people dying in the fires, while Spain and Portugal have seen record amount of land burned. Fires have also stretched firefighting resources thin this season, despite other countries sending assistance. 2025 is already a record year for forest fires in Europe, and fire season is far from over. While the continent has seen devastating seasons in the past, this year, surface area burned and the speed at which the fires spread is unprecedented. Only 5 of the European Union's 27 member states were spared from the blazes. Leading the way were Italy and Romania, each of which recorded more than 450 fires. The countries that suffered the most damage were not necessarily those that declared the most fires. Cyprus, for example, reported 3 fires, but less damage. Since January 1st, 3% of Portugal, 2.3% of Cyprus and 0.8% of Spain have gone up in smoke.
And a lot of the fires that we've been monitoring and observing are occurring where the climate anomalies show that it's much drier than average and where it's warmer than average. And generally, this is a common feature when we're monitoring wildfire emissions, that they occur under these conditions, and particularly where there's hot, dry winds blowing, any ignition can flare up very rapidly to large-scale and very intense wildfires.
More than 1 million hectares of land was burned through in the EU this year. That's more than 4 times as much as last year. In total, more than 1,800 forest fires were declared active, emitting more than 38 million tons of CO2.
We need a combination of different fire behavior factors. So this is weather, this is topography, this is vegetation, biomass, fuel. But the precondition for everything to happen is the weather. So the climate change scenarios provide the perfect envelope for all the other factors to work together for the perfect fire day or perfect firestorm.
Experts have sounded the alarm. Under these conditions, which will become increasingly common in the future, fires are getting out of control.
Our firefighting system comes to its limits, and the only thing we can do is preparing the landscape, making it more resilient, better prepared, so then the firefighters have a chance to work safely and efficient. But continuing like this and hoping that more firefighting resources will solve the problem we saw this year, this is clearly not the way forward.
So far, the exact number of deaths from the fires is unconfirmed. Smoke and disease can also claim lives long after the fires have been extinguished.
Heavy rain caused flooding and landslides in parts of Southeast Asia on Wednesday, resulting in at least 8 deaths. Flooding occurred in several central and northern regions of Vietnam, killing 7 people and injuring at least 34. And in Thailand, several people were injured from flash flooding and landslides in the north of the country. 1 person died from a landslide in the northern city of Chiang Mai. The rain is an aftermath of tropical storm Kajiki, which made landfall in Vietnam on Monday. The storm then weakened to a tropical depression on Tuesday when it moved over Laos. Scientists have warned that warmed seas as a result of climate change would cause cyclones in the region to form closer to land, become faster, and last longer.